Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Educated Colin Snap channel. How you doing? Now, I was not expecting to make this video today. I had no idea that they were releasing a patch today, and it's particularly weird because they don't normally make a patch this early. Usually, the patches are more near the end of the month, so. Probably maybe because they wanted to get Kitty Pryde out or something like that is why they're releasing a patch like this, but definitely cool. So this is probably going to be our May patch. Also interesting is they did not announce what was dropping down. I guess they're assuming that people now know what is dropping down beforehand because we do. They're following like a rigid schedule, so they're kind of just sticking to that, and because of that they're not like telling us, hey, these are the ones dropping down. They're kind of just assuming the people that want to know can now know, so there's no need to tell people, which is definitely okay. I guess it would be nice to know for the casuals, right? Oh, this is dropping down, it doesn't take that long, right? Like, you can just reveal it at the end of the previous drop down. You don't have to wait in the middle of the season or anything like that. So that is something there. But let's get into the changes. So first things off, we do have Kitty Pryde returning. So every single player is going to be getting Kitty Pryde base card. So that's going to be good for new accounts created after today's patch. It'll be a Series 5. So new accounts don't get that luxury. But that's like point something percent of players right now. So I mean that's no players right now, right? Like, but players that start joining the game afterwards, right? They won't have it. So that's going to be a little bit sad for those people. But if you in a couple of months, right? Like or half a year, right? Like that'll be Series 3, and then it won't matter as much. Obviously, it'll still matter, but you'll be able to maybe get it if you really want it. I still think it's still weird. New feature, deck cosmetic customizations by deck. Okay, so now you can have the card back, title, and avatar can be applied to each deck separately. Okay, that's cool. I guess it's a cosmetic change, so it's not that big of a deal. But there are definitely some people that wanted this, so good for them. Now we have the series drop updates. So we do have Master Mode Negasonic Nimrod dropping from Series 5 to Series 4. Those cards aren't super amazing. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of those. But we have 6 cards dropping from Series 4 to Series 3, which is more than I was expecting, honestly. It's almost like 2 different... Oh, that's why. Okay. Wow, this is not what I was expecting. Okay, so Sentry, Surfer, Dazzler, Shadow King, Sauron, and Ghost are all dropping down. So Silver Surfer is dropping down. But Null and Darkhawk are not dropping down. Huh. Darkhawk and Null were supposed to drop down this month. But they're making a decision to keep them in Series 4. That's gonna make some people not happy. That's gonna make some people not happy that happens for sure. So I mean, I don't have too many opinions on it, right? I have both of those cards personally. But I think there's a lot of people that were waiting for Darkhawk to drop down to get it, waiting for Null to drop down to get it. And this kind of just says, oh, they're not dropping down. And we don't know if they're going to drop down soon, right? Like you would say, oh, maybe they're waiting an extra month for those cards and they're moving some of the other ones in head. But it just feels like, oh, those cards are really, really good for specific compositions. So we're not going to make it as easy to get it. Definitely want to know what your opinions on those, because I definitely think a lot of people are going to have reactions to that. Rank mode is changing. They're definitely doing some weird stuff with ranks. So the number of keys required to rank up have decreased from 10 to 7. That's why. I mean, it's gonna be easier to rank up, right? You don't need you need 30 less cubes to rank up, and then the amount of bonus rank gains while tearing up is reduced from 5 to 3. But it takes 30 less cubes. So overall, it's still plus 10 cubes, easier to rank up. We're continuing to make adjustments to rank mode that will increase overall experience for players. The changes coming with this patch feature some adjustments to the matchmaking algorithm and updates to a number of cube ranks while progressing through the series. There are more changes planned. The changes coming with this patch feature some matchmaking algorithm changes. So that's interesting. As well. I hope you can see it now. So maybe the matchmaking is going to be better, but it's still awkward now, right? Like it's not clean anymore. You're going from, I guess it's still clean, right? It's still 0 to 100, but instead of each rank being 10 cubes, each rank is now 7. I understand it from a technical point of view. It just doesn't feel clean, I guess, in terms of for the player base, right? People and gamers, they like the clean number, like 10 cubes, next rank. That's simple, right? When you tell them, it's 7 ranks, 7 cubes per rank, like, they're just gonna give you why is it like this? We tried 10 but it was too convoluted. Definitely a weird system. It means that 8 cubes, every time you get 8 cubes, you're going to move up or down a rank every time you play for 8 cubes, and that is weird, right? Like, it used to be, you're spending 8 cubes, that's not necessarily a rank. Now you're spending 8 cubes is definitely a rank. It also makes the number, all the numbers are now smaller together. Like you've constrained all the numbers, where if you climbed like 100 cubes in a day, right, that's 10 ranks. Now if you climb 100 cubes, right, that's what, 14 and a half, 14ish ranks instead. Now it's definitely weirder. So I mean, these changes feel like they deserve their own videos. That's how I feel right now. The changes we've talked about so far deserve their own videos. Well, so maybe we'll do that, but definitely an interesting change. I'm not sure I love it too much, but overall, they want to make climbing easier for players because it's too hard, essentially. My experience, right, doesn't necessarily matter in terms of the grand scheme of, it's not too hard for me, blah, 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 blah. Essentially, for most players or people that were complaining it was too hard, so they want to make it easier. So they're closing the gap between people that are not infinite, people that are infinite. So I don't know. Let's move on for sure. When purchasing an item, you must now press and hold. This is overall good. I think accidentally pressing or purchasing anything in the game is a big no-no. You never really want to have that in the game. So making sure that it's kind of cumbersome to purchase something is just better, because like, okay, it takes you an extra second to buy something. Okay, that's perfectly fine, and accidentally buy anything once. So I'm fine with that. And then they added Series 1, Series 2 labels for cards in those series. That's perfectly fine. And then we have some audio changes, which are fine, but let's talk about some of the balance updates, right? So card updates, Kitty Pryde is released with a new design. You can now return this to your hand. It was the old one, but now when this returns to your hand, you +2 power, but it returns at the start of each turn. So now you can't really keep it on the board for a turn. You always have to replay it, which I feel is very common already. If you're going to be playing this card, you're right, you want to replay it because you're probably going to be playing Angela and Bishop and stuff like that, collector as well. But it does feel like you just have less options, essentially, where before you could choose. Now you don't get to choose when it happens. So that's maybe the issue. Another interesting thing is that you're going to be behind since you're losing that like this might be like an 8 power card that is just in your hand every turn, and that could be very impactful whether you have priority or not. So that could be in your favor or not, depending on how you play the game. But definitely an interesting card. I think it's going to be played. It looks strong anyway, so definitely see it seeing release. Next up, we have Crystal. Crystal's finally being changed. So it's a 4/4 on reveal. If this is in your middle location, you shuffle your hand, draw 3 cards. Now it's just each player draws a card. So you're giving players a draw ability. But both players have it. I mean, that's scary. Obviously, I think drawing is a very powerful effect, especially if you could control it, your opponent cannot, right? So things like Master Mold, right, could definitely make this very meaningful. Crystal's been one of the handful cards seeing low play and low win rates for a long time. An obvious buff candidate, yes. But the tricky thing is we don't want effects like Crystal to be too strong. Snap decks are only 12 cards. True. So we're very careful letting players draw cards, yes. This aims to make a simple, appropriate Crystal that can be fun alongside a variety of cards. Yeah, it's hard to know how this will change the game. I do think that it's a meaningful change. Being able to draw an extra card is very strong, very, very strong. So do think it's a meaningful change. Definitely going to take some time to really find where its place in the meta will be, especially with all the new changes like Crystal being added and stuff like that. Next one is Wave. Wave being changed. This is a big deal. Maybe the biggest change so far. Just looking at Wave being changed. Next turn, cards in the old players cost 4. It's the old one. Now it's all cards cost 4 until the end of the next turn. So that's probably going to limit death and stuff like that, right? Probably going to limit all the discount effects. So Wave's cost reduction, of course, after other effects that reduce card cost. Yeah, so this is a big change. Pretty much destroys like card decks like She-Hulk, I assume, right? So Doom, Death Wave, Doom Wave are gone. Anything with Wave really is gone. So this is a pretty big change. I wonder if it affects Elysian, right? Does it affect Elysian? Does it affect Sarah? Those are the questions I need to know, right? Like if Elysian and Sarah also don't get discarded here, that's changing Wave so much, right? Like, oh, it's Wave as you play on 3, play something on 4. It's doesn't do anything else. So definitely an interesting change. It also means that you can use it on turn 5, but there's no advantage to it, right? Since you can't take advantage of the Wave effect either, so let's read the in addition to a text update, we've also made a rather large adjustment under the hood. Wave will now begin to apply after cards that are reduced. Yeah, so She-Hulk, Death, etc. always cost 4. We don't take this likely. This change kills a few decks, but Wave has been far too constraining on our ability to use cost reduction as a synergy reward in future designs. So Wave was messing their deck design options essentially. So what they're saying is because we have Wave in the game, we couldn't make other cards in the game and use cost reduction as a way to make it work because it would be too strong with Wave. So they're just deciding on changing Wave dramatically. So this is definitely probably the biggest change we've seen so far in terms of meta shifts from a single card adjustment, but you know, I'm not sure I love it, but I understand the reasoning behind it, right? I do think it's going to be hard to make any type of cost reduction effects with Wave in the game, but it's always going to be hard to do stuff like that. Every time you add more cards, it changes how you look at every other card. Leaning on Wave is just always better than dedicating your deck to the extra strategy. We've seen that with death since both cards went live. We'll continue seeing it without this action. That's true. Most death decks just play wave, and they you don't care about what death does. You're just like, oh, I killed 2 cards. I'm done. Let's go. But they're also making death cost 1 less. Okay. So now to play for 6, you have to discard 2 cards. To play for less than 6, you discard a little bit less. So I think this helps death. I think death being for 8 base is not bad. You do have to kind of figure out how you combo it, right? Like you want to get it down to maybe 1. Then you could do like 1 and a 5, and that's pretty powerful. So definitely an interesting one. And then White Queen, text only changed, so it's not really being changed. And then we have a bunch of bug fixes. Okay. But overall, it's this wave change, this crystal change, and everyone gets Kitty Pryde. The wave one really needs a full deep dive in how it's gonna affect the game for sure. The death change I think is fine, especially with Venom. People are going to be playing more Destroy, so I'm okay with that. And then wave changes, like it means Death Wave, Doom Wave are gone. In the way you play it normally, right? They don't work anymore, and those are like some of the strongest decks in the game right now. So. Fascinating. All right. Well, that's all we got here. I'm not going to linger too much. I know these are generally not the most impactful, but we'll definitely be going over more of these big changes in future videos. But for now, I just wanted to drop it down. This is also pretty interesting, right? Darkhawk and Null are staying in Series 4. They should have dropped down this month. So definitely think there's going to be some people not happy with that. But other than that, take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of your day. Educated Colin Snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improving. How you doing? You'll hit infinity and won't go back.